You're a music producer. You just got a chance to work with one of your favorite producers and they just ask you to send them some loops. But now you're a little confused on how to actually send them those loops. My name is El Marquis, musician, rapper, record producer, unashamed cross follower, and today I'm going to show you how to send out loops for beat collabs.
El Marquis Productions.
The process of sending out loops for collabs really isn't that complex. However, depending on who you're working with, they may want them sent out in a really specific format. So now I'm going to go switch over to the computer and show you different ways on how you can actually export your loops. Here's a quick segment of the loop that we'll be using for this video. By the way, if you like this loop, this is actually available to download for free on my website, and that download link will be in the description below. One of the most common ways producers like to receive loops is by one WAV file or one MP3 file. In general, you'll probably be working with WAV files because those are of a higher quality than an MP3. However, their file size is noticeably bigger than an MP3 file, so some producers actually prefer working with MP3s for that specific reason. And it's really easy to export both an MP3 and a WAV file of your loop at the exact same time. If you're using Logic Pro, it's really easy to do it. First, make sure that you include the entire cycle range of your loop. On your keyboard, click Command and B. And then in this section where it says PCM, make sure that the file format is WAV. Make sure the resolution is 24-bit. And then also go to MP3. Make sure the bitrate is 320. And then click OK. And then make sure that you export the loop into a destination where you're going to remember. I also would recommend including in the title of the file the BPM, the key signature, and either your producer name or your Instagram handle. Then click Bounce. And then within a few seconds, your loop will export both as an MP3 and a WAV file. And then when you actually do send it off, make sure that you send whichever file they prefer, whether it's the WAV or the MP3. Something else they may want you to include in your loop as well could actually be the stems played at the end of the loop. So for example, if your loop has multiple tracks in it, like this one right here where it's got multiple guitars and different pianos and mallets, rather than sending the trackouts to the loop, which we'll also cover later on in this video, they may just want you to actually stem it out at the end of the file. And the reasons why they'll ask for this is maybe they want to rearrange your loop in a different way, maybe they want to mix your instruments in a different way, and then rather than sending the trackouts, which will be multiple files, everything will actually just be included on one single MP3 or WAV file. It's really easy to do that as well. What I would recommend doing is leave some space at the end of your loop, maybe like 1 or 2 bars, and then one by one just play the tracks after each other. And also I might recommend leaving a little bit of space in between them as well, so that way if there's like any like reverb tails, you make sure that it plays all the way through before the next track comes in. And that's exactly what you can see over here. These 2 tracks are playing pretty much the exact same thing. It's just a guitar that I dubbed over twice, which is why these parts are together, and then I left a bar of space in between where the grand piano comes in next, and then the keys, and so on and so forth. Another way you can export your loops is by actually just sending out the trackouts, and the purpose of that will be for the same reason why you may want to leave your stems at the end of the loop. The difference is that instead of all of it being on one single file, each individual track will be exported as its own individual file. In Logic Pro, it's really easy to export trackouts. All you need to do is make sure that your cycle range for your loop is selected, go to File, Export all tracks as audio files, and once again make sure that you're exporting the files into a destination where you're going to remember where it's at, and make sure that you are putting them in a folder actually, and the name of the folder can be the same as the loop. Trust me, you do want to make sure that you include the tempo as well as the key signature of your loop, because that will make it super easy to work with. Create the folder. For range, click Export Cycle Range Only, so that way it only exports what's included within your cycle range right here. Save format WAV, bit depth 24-bit, and for normalize I would actually make sure that it's off, so that way your files export as they're intended and that there's no additional or unwanted compressions added to them. Click Export, and now the trackouts for your loop are exporting. In addition to the trackouts sent in an audio format, they may also want you to send the MIDI files that you used. The reason why they may want the MIDI files as well is so that they can easily take one of your melodies or your chord progressions and put them on a different instrument. It's really easy to export MIDI files as well. You'll have to go over to your MIDI regions, right click on them, go to Export, and click Export as MIDI file. And to keep things organized, I would recommend actually making 2 separate folders. Within that folder, one of them saying trackouts or stems and the other saying MIDI. And then make sure you save it as the name of that track. In this instance, I believe it was the grand piano that I clicked on. And then hit save. And then you would do that for each MIDI region. Just follow the exact same steps until you exported them all. So then if there's an instance where they like the chords or the melodies that you included, and then either they want to replace the sound or add their own layers on top of it, they'll be able to quickly use your exact idea and not have to spend any extra time trying to figure out what exactly you played. And the last way a producer may want you to send loops over is by actually just sending over the project file itself. So if both of you are using the same DAW, they may prefer that you send over the project file. And if they do ask for that, that makes things really easy. But the one thing I would recommend that you do is bounce your VST instruments in place. And the same thing for any audio files if you added any specific effects on them. The reason why you may want to do this is because if they don't have the same VSTs as you, for example, if you have complete and the other producer does not, then some of your tracks aren't going to play back. However, if they're all audio files, then they should all play back with no problem at all. And it's really easy to bounce your tracks in place. All you need to do is click on the track, right click on the regions you want to bounce in place, scroll down to bounce, and then bounce in place, and then you can name it whatever you want. For source, you can leave it if you want your MIDI region to stay there. You can mute it or you can delete it. Make sure that bypass effect plugins is not clicked, so that way if you're using a plugin that maybe they don't have, like RC20 or Effectrix or Halftime or anything like that, all those effects will be included within the audio file. And then I would include the audio tail in the file, like for example if you used a delay or a reverb, and then you can choose whether or not to include the audio tail within the region. If you don't, you can just drag it back out. Make sure normalize is off, then click OK, and then this region will bounce in place as an audio file. And then from there I would go over, mute this audio file, and then rather than deleting the track, you could just leave it there if maybe they want to use your MIDI regions later on. Or to make things look a bit neater, you can right click on it, hit hide selected track, and then the track won't be deleted. The track will just be hidden, which will keep your session file looking more neat. But then if they want to pull it back up, all they need to do is click this H right here, and then all the tracks that are hidden will have this green box on it with the H, and then they can either unmute the track if, let's say, they actually do have that plugin, or they can move the MIDI region over to a different instrument. And then after you bounced all of your tracks in place, you can simply send off the project file. Something I'd also recommend that you do, especially if you're working with someone who you don't know or you haven't worked with before, is include a terms of agreement. Actually, I would even include that with the people you know. And the terms of agreement should include details like what are your splits going to look like after someone buys the beat, or if you release it as an instrumental on Spotify. And you may want to include if the loops are exclusively for this producer, or if you're also sending them off to other people. And if you're concerned about people taking your loops and sending them off to other producers as their own, you may also want to include a term that says that they cannot redistribute the loops. And then when it comes to actually sending them off, if you're sending off small MP3 files, you may be able to send them as an email attachment, or if you're sending off larger size files like folders with wave trackouts or the project file itself, what I would recommend that you do is first find the folder, right click on it, click compress, so that way it puts it in a zip folder, and then send the zip folder through their preferred platform, whether it's through Google Drive, Dropbox, WeTransfer, or whatever they prefer to use. Just make sure that you ask them which platform they prefer before you send them off. And then after you do that, you're pretty much good to go. After that, all you need to do is wait for them to send something back, and hopefully the beat is fire. So to wrap this video up, sending out loops is relatively straightforward. The first thing that you should do is make sure that you ask the producer that you're collaborating with what format do they want the loops to be sent in, because not everyone's workflow is the same. And you should be someone who's easy to work with, so don't force them to change their workflow to accommodate for you. Make sure that you are accommodating for them. So if they want you to send the loop as a single MP3 file, do that. If they want you to send the trackouts, do that. It may not seem like that big of a deal, but if you are someone who is difficult to work with, that really could hurt your chances of working with that producer again, or with them even finishing up your collab in the first place. Now you just learned how to send loops to producers for beat collabs. Thank you for watching this video. If you like what you've seen today, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you know whenever I upload new videos. Also, be sure to visit my website, lmarkeyproductions.com. That's where you'll be able to find my music, my beats, my sample kits, my merchandise, and my mixing, mastering, and consulting services. Now go down in the comment section below and let me know, what producer do you want to work with this year? My name is L Markey, L Markey Productions. God bless.